The Green New Deal is the path forward if we want to escape from climate catastrophe. It is a plan that tears down the old ways of thinking around the environment, which pitted jobs against the environment, or growth against the environment, or economic well-being against the environment. It tears that down for once and for all. And it's refreshing to see, and it's something we need to see. Because if we want to build a future for humanity, that isn't Mad Maxian in its status, we need a Green New Deal to get us there. We need to lower our carbon consumption drastically. And the reality is we need a political and social and economic program that allows us to do so while not leaving the majority of the people behind. Because the reality is that climate justice and social justice are inseparable, or at least they should be. And we will not get the political and social consensus to enact a decarbonization plan if it doesn't include the broad masses of working people. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. The Green New Deal is the way to get us there. I can throw up on the screen some of the goals of the Green New Deal in the United States, but the reality is that it's really centered on this idea that, when we're decarbonizing, it's not just about throwing oil workers or natural gas workers or what have you out of jobs, or, coal miners. It's not pitting the coal miner against the solar plant worker. It's really about saying that, yeah, there is going to have to be economic transformation. But in so doing, there's so many forms of work that need to be done to get us there, that there will be jobs for everyone in the process. Retrofitting housing, building transit, funding education to study new forms of social and scientific ways of saving energy and of producing cleaner forms of energy. All of these sorts of things are necessary to get us there. And it just so happens that it's broad and inclusive. It's not just something that's set to benefit a relatively small part of the population and a relatively small part of a country. It has the potential to be a broad-based form of social and economic transformation, in addition to preventing us from mass death due to climate change. And so in Canada, we need to start talking about the Green New Deal more seriously. We really do. And here's the deal, folks. You know me and my political biases. You know that I'm a New Democrat. But like, if I'm being perfectly honest from an objective standpoint, there's only one political party in this country that would ever implement a Green New Deal, and it is the New Democrats. We can throw the conservatives out. They're full of climate denialists, or if they don't deny climate change, they seem to, acknowledge its scientific validity, but give no damns about the consequences. We can throw them out. The Liberal Party, which a lot of people support, if only under a hostage threat because they worry about a conservative government, has no indication that they'll ever implement a Green New Deal. The Liberal Party acknowledges climate change, often uses it as a political tool to distinguish themselves from the conservatives, and yet their biggest, notes on the climate are that they bought a pipeline and that they're failing to even meet Stephen Harper's climate, goals in terms of carbon reduction. And the Green Party, for all of its positives, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are Greens, and I have a lot of respect for that party, but the Green Party, in Canada at least, is too tied to notions of capitalism to approach a Green New Deal in the manner needed. The Green New Deal is not just an environmental plan, but it's a challenge to the way in which we allocate and produce goods. It's a plan of democratic socialism. And so we need to realize that fact, that the Green Party, as it's currently structured, is far too conservative on economic terms to ever embrace a Green New Deal. And that leaves the New Democratic Party, founded as the CCF, almost approaching 100 years ago now, founded on this idea that capitalism doesn't work for working people. And while the NDP has sometimes lost that verve of anti-capitalist critique, it's never really truly gone from the party. And so it is the only political force in English Canada, at least. We could talk about Quebec Solidaire in Quebec, that has the potential to implement a Green New Deal. And so that's where it's going to have to come from. That's where it's going to have to come from politically. And that's not to say that this is strictly a political thing. It's going to have to come from grassroots groups. It's going to have to come from labor unions. It's going to have to come from all sorts of organizations that need to be on the forefront of merging social justice and climate change. Of course, it's going to have to include indigenous nations within within what we call Canada. It's going to have to be an all hands on deck effort. And it's going to have to be based on the idea, like we've seen from Ocasio Cortez and others, that climate change requires a challenge not only to how we produce carbon and how we produce energy in this country, but how we allocate our resources. The Green New Deal is democratic socialism. Simple as that. A lot of right-wingers out there will say, well, the Green New Deal is just a backdoor to socialism. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint those who maybe don't want to fuel that fire, but they're right. The Green New Deal is socialism. We shouldn't hide away from that. The reality is it's socialism or barbarism. It's socialism or climate catastrophe. And the Green New Deal is the form of socialism we need. 100%. Now, the NDP is the only party that can get us there. But even there, more needs to be done, I would wager. Now, if you've been following the news recently, you see that Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the New Democrats, has been talking about the first planks in his environmental plan. And I can just show you the graphic right here. And so you can see the goal here is retrofitting all homes in Canada by 2050. The goal can produce jobs, it will save families money, it will reduce carbon emissions, and it recognizes the fact that while 2050 is a long ways away, most buildings still in use today will be in use by 2050. This is a great start. This is a great start, folks. But does it go far enough? Many people would say no, for a couple reasons. One, it's not just about homes, it's really about all buildings. Two, a lot of people have noted that given scientific, discourse, we don't have till 2050 to address some of these issues. That at the very least, the plan has to be front-loaded. That maybe it'll take until 2050 to complete, but that much of the work needs to start immediately. There's also the political concern. Some of my friends on social media have noted this, that liberals and conservatives will try to undo the progress of a Green New Deal should the NDP, say, get elected in 2019. If they lose in 2023, the work will be undone. So the work needs to start now, and it needs to be done in as quick a fashion and as permanent a fashion so that liberals and conservatives can't undo the work that will have been completed by that point and will have been started by that point. In a sense, we need to be even bolder than the current NDP proposals are. And that's where we are, I think. Courage, which is a sort of left-wing group within the NDP, has made these points. They've noted that the NDP is the only political party that has the potential to implement this policy. It's the only political party that can do so. But that the current leadership needs to be bolder. It needs to be bolder in reaching a goal of a zero carbon economy. But beyond that, it needs to combine that vision with traditional CCF NDP values of public ownership, of promotion of workers' values. And while a lot of this will certainly be in Jagmeet Singh's plan, we need to be bold here. We need to be bold for a few reasons. One, the next generation doesn't have time to wait. It doesn't. I'm a new father. I'm a relatively young guy myself, but I have a baby, little Demetrios. He's only 6 months old. Greatest kid ever. Unbiased as I am. Greatest little guy ever. And I love him more than anything. And there are concerns, though, about the future of him and of other young people. And even myself, I'm only 32. What's the next 50 years of my life if I get to live that long? What's that going to be like if we don't address climate change? We don't have the time to wait to make that leap towards a Green New Deal. We don't have the time. Beyond that, the NDP needs to be bold. A lot of people, incorrect as they are, disingenuous as they are in some cases, will just say, well, what really matters in Canada is that the Conservatives don't win. Because the Greens, the NDP, the Liberals, they're all more or less the same. So as long as the blue guys don't win, it's a good election. And this feeds that strategic voting narrative. This feeds this sort of lowered expectation that allows Justin Trudeau to get away with scandal after scandal and lie after lie and broken promise after broken promise and watered down policy after watered down policy, and doesn't actually allow us to hammer home the fundamental differences between small L liberalism and between democratic socialism. And again, some of this is based on disingenuous media and disingenuous voices on social media, but some of this is based on the NDP's, should be put at the NDP's feet. That the NDP at times needs to do a better job selling just how bold its policies are. And this is a good start, but it needs to go further. And showing that the only path forward that doesn't involve climate catastrophe is through a democratic socialist reorganization of our economy. That's the only way. So that's where we're at, folks. It's as simple as that. We only have so much time. And there needs to be leadership shown. And it won't come from the Conservatives. It won't come from the Liberals. Frankly, it probably won't come from the Greens. It can only come from New Democrats and from other progressive groups in society willing to work with them. But the NDP needs to show leadership here. It needs to be bold. It needs to stand firm. It needs to link the struggles of the 21st century around climate to the values that founded our movement in the 1930s. That capitalism, that private property, that economic autocracy do not serve the interests of the 99%. And that only the public and worker-owned and cooperative organization of our economy builds a just society. And in our climate crisis that we now live in, that value is perhaps as true now as it was in the 1930s. So let's do it, folks. To all my Canadian progressives, I think the lesson is clear. The NDP is the only political vehicle that will get us towards a Green New Deal. So if you're one of the progressives who's sort of like, well, I don't really like the NDP, they're not left enough for me, I don't see the value in it, I would wager that there's a value in you joining up and trying to shake things up from the inside. But I also have to say to my fellow New Democrats, those of you who say that, well, we can't be too radical, the voters won't want it, we have to be somewhat more centrist, I have to say to you that we need to be bold here. That the Green New Deal is popular in Canada. That the Green New Deal is popular in Canada in general, and especially when it's combined with this idea that to pay for some of the things that a New Deal requires, we have to tax the rich. These things are popular. There's no excuse. We want to find that bump in the polls. We want to link environmentalism to our party's traditional working class and socialist ideals. We want to find a way to distinguish ourselves from the Liberals and Greens. Here's the answer. We only got a few years left. But politically, for the left in Canada, we have the rest of this year until the fall to implement the Green New Deal as the left's political platform in 2019. So let's make it happen. There is no alternative. There is no Planet B.